All right. Welcome in Toilets to Titles. This is episode number 201. This week we start our endeavor into the next 100 episodes, right? Last week was a bit of a celebration. I mean, every episode's a celebration, especially when we have the title tribe involved. But we're walking through a new door. We're in the 200s now, and I am joined with the man who joined me when I stepped through the first door for episode number 1. Back again for episode number 201. My guy, Justin Stevens, at JustinFF _ on the Twitter. Justin, what's happening?
Hey, Coach, pretty eventful day. We had a lot going on today. Pretty wore out. Took me a nice little power nap, and I'm juiced. I'm ready to go because I'm not giving anything away, but we're talking a little Franken-stank today, so I'm pretty excited. You know how I get giddy about it.
Yeah, man, for sure. And so this is a Week 8 NFL fantasy football preview. For anyone who's listening that's not a member of the Title Tribe, the Title Tribe is our crew. All right, we have a Gilded chat. It's on the Gilded app. It's like Discord with like 10 different, little channels in there, and you can get in there. You too can join the Title Tribe. Toilets2titles@gmail.com, or reach out to me on the Twitter at Coach Sheps or Justin at JustinFF_. If you are not a member of the Title Tribe, don't worry. We still got you covered. We're talking fantasy this week. We're going to hit fantasy from the beginning, in the middle, at the end, but also in the in-betweens. We have a listener league called the Franken-stank Listener League, and we have a playlist on our YouTube channel if you're interested. Currently has 96 teams, started as a 14-team league. It's 96 teams, I believe 8 or 9 divisions. Next year, we're probably going to add minimum 4 divisions. We're going to go over 150 teams next year, so there's plenty of room for all of you. And everyone who's playing, I am loving the feedback because this is our baby. We built this thing. We brainstormed this thing. We stream of conscience this thing. And we wanted something different, but we didn't want to be different just to be different. We wanted to break the mold of fantasy football, take a step into a new realm. We're taking lots of steps this evening. It's a 201, and I'm explaining the step we took into Franken-stank, but we wanted to step into kind of a new dimension of fantasy football. And I promise you, Franken-stank is just that. If you keep listening throughout this episode again for the fantasy football content, you'll hear some more about Franken-stank, and you'll understand why you want to play in this league. But Justin, everyone should be checking out toiletstitles.com, right? Hit the like and subscribe button. Check out the Gilded chat. Are you prepped to give a little info on the giveaway we're doing? You want me to drop that?
I think you should probably drop that. This is the flagship show. This is the main show. I know you dropped most of the clues Sunday morning on Title Time, which is our start sit show on Sunday mornings for your fantasy football start sit advice. But I think for this first time around, I want to hear you say it.
All right, so we're giving away a Yeti cooler. All right, and this is like a $325 cooler. All right, I think we're going to give it away in like a special limited green edition to go with the Franken-stank. You can go to yeticooler.com. You can check out this cooler and see what it looks like. And there are ways you can enter. Actually, you have to complete these things. All right, so you have to get into our Gilded chat if you want to enter. Also, we are going to complete a 3-word phrase. Okay, this giveaway starts in November. The first episode of November, I believe, is November 7th. Then there'll be an episode November 14th. Then there will be an episode November 21st. That'll be right before Thanksgiving. We are going to give away 1 word over those 3 episodes. You are going to email us that phrase, toiletstotitles@gmail.com. Okay, so again, you need to be subscribed to the YouTube channel. You need to be in the Gilded chat. You can see it all on here. And you need to get that 3-word phrase. If you do all that, plus like and comment on the 3 episodes that we release those phrases in, you will get entered into this giveaway. If you're a Patreon member, patreon.com/toiletstitles, you will get an additional entry for each tier you are. So you still need to do the 4 steps to enter. But if you do the 4 steps in your tier 1, that's 2 entries. Okay, because you get your regular entry, your Patreon entry, so on and so forth. So get in there, win this Yeti cooler. Let's celebrate. We're giving back, all right? So the Toilets Titles team wants to do that. Join the Title Tribe. We would love to see you in that. All right, I wanted to kind of talk about, before we get into, some Franken-stank stuff, it's time to evaluate your squad, right? I said that last week, fantasy football. If you're in, if you're out. Dynasty, you have different perspective than you would in redraft, okay? In redraft, when you're out, you're out. Dynasty, when you're out, you could be looking towards next season. So last week I was kind of talking about some guys you should be shipping out if you're out. But now I'm talking redraft or dynasty, some players you should be targeting if you're trying to make a long-term run, right? Like down the stretch, trying to make a championship run. These are some running backs I think that'll bolster your roster. I'm targeting James Conner. All right. He can return from the IR week 10 versus Atlanta. So he'll likely miss about 2 more weeks. But I think when he comes back, if he's your third running back, he's a flex play in PPR. I think you're in great shape while healthy. Week 1 through week 5, he was running back 18. That's a mid tier running back, 11.9 points per game. In 3 of those 5 games, though, he faced the 3rd, 10th, and 13th ranked defense against the run. So he was a mid-tier RB2 playing against some of the best rushing defenses in the NFL. He's hurt, out of sight, out of mind. You could probably slide in the manager's DMs, make an offer. You maybe give them somebody that can help them right now. Bolster your roster down the stretch post week 10. Another guy, Tony Pollard. This is a guy I was singing his praise all offseason. He has been very disappointing. So the player or the owner, manager who's currently rostering Pollard might be looking to ship him out. He's probably going to cost more than the other players I'm going to mention, but he's currently running back 13 through 7 weeks, but running back 22 from weeks 3 to 5, which was a low end RB2, has only found the end zone twice. Has not topped 15 carries since week 3, has not faced a top 10 rushing defense yet this season. So none of this is looking good. But I do think he's going to bounce back. His 81 carries are the 9th most in the NFL. Cowboys are going to give him opportunities. They had a bye week. He's going to be fresh. Due to all the things I mentioned, the current manager is probably a little frustrated. I'm probably going to have to make a decent offer, but I think he's somebody, if at the right price, I'd be willing to roster. Alvin Kamara in Dynasty. Here's a guy I want to target, especially if the guy who manages Alvin Kamara, that's a pun intended, right? Target, figuring he's received 35 receptions in 4 games this season, which is pretty incredible. But if I'm playing Dynasty, if I'm all in, and the guy who rosters, or the girl who rosters Alvin Kamara is out, make a move. All right. He'll be 29 this summer. He's got 1,200 plus career carries, 465 career receptions. He's closing in 2,000 touches. The wheels are eventually going to fall off, but let them fall off after you win that ship. Due to his recent play, which is RB2 weeks 4 through 7, it'll likely be hard to snag. But if the guy or girl who rosters him is sensible, and you could talk to this person and say, hey, you're out of it. Here's kind of, you never want to bash somebody you're targeting, but just talk sense. Be respectful, make a decent offer. You might be able to snag them. I think it'll help you win a ship. And then finally, another guy we talked about all year, Tajay Spears. If Derrick Henry goes down at any point, I've been saying it since the season started, Tajay Spears is a league winner. You're not going to get him if he's rostered with Derrick Henry. Ain't going to happen unless you trade for both of them. But if he's not rostered with Derrick Henry, you might be able to get him as a throw-in. If you're targeting maybe a wide receiver and that's who you're really going after and you give a pretty nice deal, especially in Dynasty, you might be able to get Tajay Spears as a throw-in. I'm trying to get him on my roster, not trying to wish injury on Derrick Henry, but if it happens, Tajay Spears is going to break out. And I think he'll be an RB1 in those weeks. So that's those are some players I'm targeting. So Justin, any thoughts on some of the players I'm targeting?
They're all players that we at Toy Listed Titles were kind of big on early on in the season, and for the most part, they haven't really let us down. We've, like you said, Tony Pollard, yeah, a little bit, but that's what makes him cheap and good to be on this list. But yeah, absolutely love the Alvin Kamara ad right now. It just makes sense.
Yeah, man. So I want to get into Franken-stank because everybody's in here. Fantasy Football Monsters, Black Body Absorber, George Reed, Dustin H. Tone's in here, who's doing really well. He's been around since year 1, and this is his first year being absolutely competitive. But before we get into Franken-stank, Justin, why don't you plug Rival Fantasy?
So Rival Fantasy is the newest evolution in fantasy sports betting. You want to check out Rival, you want to make sure to go to joinrival.com/title tribe. They have $1 fantasy sports bingo cards where you fill out achievements based on how the players do on the field. So yeah, that's right. Only $1 per bingo card. Again, they also have several other different ways you can win portions of hundreds of dollars at a time on those bingo cards, but there's other different ways to gamble as well. We introduced on the Friendly Fire show last week with Nate and myself the newest way to gamble by betting on your fantasy matchup in your season-long league on Rival. So it's pretty crazy, pretty wild stuff. That's joinrival.com/title tribe. Your first deposit of up to $200 will be matched, plus an additional $25 just for using that link.
And one of the good things about Rival, if you join Rival with that link and you're in the title tribe, there's a lot of differing opinions in this title tribe. I enjoy that there's like nobody gets on anybody. There's really like no trash talk outside of, people just having fun. But there are differing opinions. And that we have a rival thread in our gilded chat. So you can make rival bets based upon differing opinions that you have throughout the week. And then on Sunday, you could sit down. Not only do you have fantasy, you have this little kind of bragging rights bet that you made with so and so during the week. So it is a fun addition to my regular fantasy football lineup.
Yeah, and on that, we did have a nice little friendly back and forth for the tail end of last week, and especially on Sunday about the Dolphins and Eagles match. Yes, I was wrong. I have to admit that I was at least partially wrong. So we'll see how the Dolphins do moving forward as well. But yes, but I did still win a lot of my rival matchups because of everybody taking advantage of my Eagles hate for last week. Raheem Mostert still performed pretty well for me.
Yeah, man. All right. Hey, we got everyone from Franken-stank here. Let's give a Franken-stank playoff picture update now that we're halfway through the season.
Absolutely. So first, let me share my screen here, because what I'd like to do is I was sharing the Yeti while you were talking about it, so that's why I forgot to have this up and ready.
It's
So
all
it's
good.
my bad, but we are good. All right, so here's my screen, and we're talking playoff scenarios. So if the playoffs were to start today, what would the playoffs look like? So let's first talk about how we break this down. All right, so the first 8 seeds are going to be your 8 division winners. Here's how you win your division: you have the best record, and if you're tied with another team for the best record in your division, we go to points for. There are other tiebreakers after that, but this is the 4th year now, and every time I check the scenarios, we've never had to go past the points for on the tiebreaker. So that's really all we need to talk about. So, so the top 8 seeds are your top league or division winners for each of the 8 divisions. Again, like Coach said earlier, it's 96 teams. There's 12 teams in each division, so each division is set up like its own little league. And the top team, like let's look at the urinals for example. The Thing is 6-1, and Pennywise is 6-1. So we go to points for. The Thing has the higher points for. So even if he might have lost to Pennywise earlier, he gets the tiebreaker because it's points for. This is because we want to try to entice people to start their best lineups rather than hiding their players to prevent them from getting stolen. But also you can counteract that by using that as a viable strategy. So there's a lot of strategy involved. Anyway, long story short, our top 2 division winners, so the teams that won their division, or at this point in the scenario, they have won their division to this point, and they have the most points for of the 8. Because after I get after we go by win-loss record, we then go by points for. Number 1 with a bye is you, Coach Sheps. The Wolfman coverage is 7-0 with a points for of 2,082 points.
I need a howl sound drop. I'm not good enough to drop it myself, but it would be a good time to play one of those.
Now, here's what's interesting. In points for, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These 5 teams right here have all outscored you on the season. But you're still the one that gets the 1 seed and the bye because none of them have won their division with a 7-0 record to this point.
How about that?
It's kind of crazy. There's a lot of different, mathematically speaking, there's a lot of different anomalies. We're not going to be able to hit them all, obviously, tonight, but a lot of different things like that pops up. So Coach won the creature from the staff bathroom division here.
So far.
Yeah, to this point, yeah. Let's see. So next was going to be, at this point, is coming from my division, the Mummies 2, because Von Murders beat me this week. I hit a bunch of players. I used that strategy. Kind of bit me, but not on points so much because he also took a big hit, but he is in the lead at 7-0. He also has an incredible team and has 2,060 points right now. So he's nipping at your heels. He's only 22 points behind you.
22 is a great number.
with the number 2 seed as the only 2 with the bye. Now, as I read off the rest of the division winners, keep in mind that these next 6 all still have to face the gauntlet in round 1 of the playoffs, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But Falcor has won, or would at this point would have won the Franken-stank division, the OG division, and her points are 2,052, so she's only 8 points out from a bye. Then we have Hulk Smash, Bobby Cables at Bobby Cables is also 7-0 with the most points in his division for an undefeated team. The 5 seed is Strad von Zorovich, and that is going to be the bidet of Franken-stank division. That's Hero J. He's the first one that's 6-1. So we do have other 7-0 teams other than those top 4, but they're not leading their division, so they're not in the top 8. And as a matter of fact, some of them aren't even in the top 16. But then we have Swamp Gator, the Curse of Medusa, and the Thing, all rounding out the top 8. After the top 8, we go with points 4. Now the points 4, it's because we want to try to entice people to try to win the game, or at least try to. If you are going to take the strategy of benching players, maybe you try it where you're only barely losing, which makes it even more difficult. So, but if you sacrifice points 4, you could be sacrificing a big playoff spot. Mick Taylor of Wolf Creek at 5-2 is our 9 seed because he has the most points for. That's not a division leader, and he actually has the most points for on the season of all teams at 2,112 at 5-2. Let's see. El Kukui, our boy Rich, the Frito Bandito at the 10 seed. Jason Voorhees at 11. The Crypt Creeper, so Rich's son, 2 spots behind him at 12. Lucky number 13, Michael Myers. I come in at the 14th seed at a 6-1 record and 1,901 points because at 6-1, I'm one of the worst 6-1 teams in the Frank at only 1,904 points. I had a lot of luck. So I'm the 14th seed. That's Justin's Jigsaw of Judgment. The Kraken at 15 and Wolf Predator at 16. Wolf Predator at the 16 seed is 5-2 with 1,899 points. After the points, we then go back to win-loss record. Because at the end of the day, it's still fantasy football. We still want to win football games, or we want to win our fantasy matchups. So the last 16 positions are all based on win-loss record, and then you order them by points 4 after that. We had one team left after the top 16 that's still undefeated in Frank at 7-0 with 1,824 points. So not enough total points to get in the top 16, but obviously the record gets him in at 17, and that's Ghoulie Pete.
Great name, Ghoulie Pete.
The next 5 spots all go to the 6-1 teams that are still left. And that's the 18 is Pennywise, 19 is Demogorgon, who we'll be talking about a little bit more in just a moment. Number 20, The Fiend. Number 21, Black Eyed Children. Number 22, 18 Weeks Later. So after that, there's a big, large chunk. Well, not a super large chunk, but there's a decent number of teams that are all 5-2 that take up most of the final positions in the playoffs. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams that are 5-2. Then we base them off of points 4. There is a total of in the next 5 positions, there's a total of less than 80 points separating these next 5. And that is number 32, Mad Scientist, number 24, the Dayton Stranglers, number 25, the Toxic Avengers, 26 is Teen Wolf, and 27 is Chucky's Last Stand. The rest of the 5-2 teams, 28, Slender Man, 29, the Hallam Humans, that's Shane P. Hallam, at Shane P. Hallam on Twitter. Number 30 is Nahul, and then the Headless Horseman at 31. is the final 5-2 team. After that, it gets interesting, people. We have one playoff spot left to give based on win-loss record. And in that spot, in that 32 spot, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 teams that are all 4-2 trying to vie for this last spot. So it goes to the
4-3.
What's that?
4-3.
Yes, 4-3. That's what I meant. And they're all vying for that last spot, and it goes based off of points for. And it's your boy Sven Graboid at this point that has more points for, but he has 1,859, and there are 3 teams, three other teams within 100 points of him. Guys, 100 points, that's one good Travis Kelce game in the Franken-stank. So it's super close for that last playoff spot. So a lot of you teams that are there at the end, if you're 4-3 right now, you're kind of on the bubble right now. Probably can't really afford to save a lot of your good players moving forward. Might want to try to go for that win. Just a suggestion. But that's your playoff bracket as of right now. If the playoffs were to start today.
Hell yeah. All right. We got some more Franken-stank stuff we're going to do shortly. I want to get through our games of the week, discuss some buys, and then get into the streaming life. But we have playable cards in this league. So if you're listening, again, you're not totally involved or know what we're doing. It's vampire style. When you win, you could steal a player from your opponent's roster, from their starting lineup. You have to give them a player back from your starting lineup. So sometimes people, if they know they're going to lose, they'll bench their best players. Or sometimes if somebody knows they're going to win, they'll bench a good player, pick up a bad player so they could trade that bad player for a good player. There's a lot of stuff. We also have playable cards, which one of them is the leprechaun card we will talk about in a few segments. But there are tons of other cards. If you're interested, go to the playlist on our YouTube channel, Franken-stank playlist, and you'll see videos where Justin and Iceman break down every single card. And we got some we're working on that I looked, Justin, I know you worked on a bunch. I was a little nervous when you said you worked on a buttload, but I looked at them. I'm content. Like that's not a buttload. That's like a logical, I got, I'm a control freak. I got nervous. I think I can deal with. So there's some behind the scenes discussion we're showing on air, but
yeah, but coach, you've got to remember that I don't take it personally if you say no. So
right.
Just we can always hold them for another year too.
Well, I didn't necessarily read them. I looked at the amount and I was like, this is a lot less than a buttload. So I took a deep breath. But anyway, a lot of playable cards. Things are good and all good stuff. Maybe we'll tease one or two of these in the Patreon chat. Patreon.com/toilets-titles. If you want to know maybe something we're working on, but you got to keep it in-house. You got to keep it in the Patreon chat. All right, Justin. Games of the week last week, I took Chargers at Chiefs, 17-31. You took Dolphins at Eagles, also 17-31. Have we ever had one of these situations where it was an identical score?
I have no idea, but I doubt it. Like that's pretty crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
the odds of it happening in two games within 1 week period is pretty insane. Like within the NFL, like you just don't see it very often. So
yeah, both good games. You had mentioned you're eating a little bit of crow with the Dolphins and the Eagles, but I really can't get on you because I was so sold on the San Francisco 49ers, and then they lost back-to-back weeks. So I can't get on you about not believing in the Eagles because I believed too heavily in San Francisco, and I'm still not ready to get off the bandwagon because I think that team is absolutely loaded.
Well, the difference there is that almost everybody in America and across the globe agreed with you, and almost everybody across the globe disagreed with me.
Right.
And I'm still the one that was wrong.
All right. Well, good games. Chargers, Chiefs, Dolphins, Eagles. Overall, good football. We're getting into that time of year where teams are what they are. So the big matchups you can be excited for, and they usually don't disappoint. So week 8, I'm going Rams at Cowboys. I think the Cowboys ultimately should stop the Rams rushing attack, but it's been a few weeks, or rather maybe even all seasons since Dak had like a monster through the air performance. And I think Stafford, Puka, Cup, big days. But I see not only CeeDee Lamb, I see Brandon Cooks finally getting hit for like a 40+ yard touchdown. I think there's going to be a lot of fireworks in this game. I'm very excited about it. And I'm also nervous. I don't like picking the Cowboys since it's my team for the game of the week because I kind of think it's bad juju. But this is a game I'm excited to watch. There's a lot of star power out there.
Yeah, there's a number of good games this week actually. Like Thursday night gives us some fantasy players right out the gate, and then there's several divisional games this week. You got Minnesota at the Packers, and then the Eagles at Miami for Miami's comeback game there. The Eagles and Washington, maybe another overtime divisional matchup. Um, and then, of course, the Bengals and San Francisco is the game that I want to be the game of the week. I'm just not so sure it's going to be a game of the week. It's one of those I feel like may even be overhyped going into it. I went with the Battle of the New Yorks as kind
Jerseys. They're
yeah.
both in New Jersey.
Well, I'm talking about the name,
Yeah.
but whatever. They're not the New Jersey Giants.
They should be.
Well, I mean, at the very least, maybe the Jets should be shipped out. But yeah, so we've got the Jets at the Giants. So both are the home teams. I'll be interested to see if there's more green or more blue. But regardless, it's definitely going to be a fun matchup. I have to feel like they're going to want to take a lot of pride to be the New York team, right? So, and also pretty darn good defense for the Jets for the most part. And then I feel like the Giants are the better team overall, maybe, especially in the quarterback play, no matter who the quarterback is. But I think, Zach Wilson makes that game a low scoring, close game, no matter who he plays against. So it should be a nice little battle.
Man, I think the Jets are leaps and bounds ahead of the Giants.
Yeah. I kind of thought that as I was kind of rambling for a second,
but history, Giants are the older brother. So when you go up against your older brother, even if you're bigger, your older brother usually holds you down.
And I just can't get past Zach Wilson though. Like that's the part. Like I know that this Jets team is a really good team overall, but Zach Wilson brings them down so much that it sucks that it happened to Aaron Rodgers and they're still just a quarterback away.
Right. Hey, so I want to briefly just touch on the buys before we get into the streaming life. But Anthony's in here. Tone's in here. He's got his Michael Myers card. And we have 2 Michael Myers cards that are currently still rolling, right? So the Michael Myers card, if you take the Michael Myers card, you have to draft a card during the draft. You can't play it until October. So all the other cards, I believe you can play them at any point, right? Freddie needs to be played before the season. You have to bank on your team being good enough that you didn't waste your pick on a card. Tone banked. I don't know who the other manager is, but Michael Myers, if you win playing your Michael Myers card, so I believe the first week, if you take off 10% from your opponent's score. If you win that game, he gets stronger. I think it's 15%, and then it's 20%, and then it's the final week is 25%.
No, third week is 17.
And then
week is 20. Yeah,
so
don't get Anthony all excited.
It goes up, but I wonder how many of those playoff scenarios are going to be adjusted because somebody got points taken away. So the Michael Myers not only could hand you a loss, it's taking away points from you, which not only are you losing, but could affect your ability to make the playoffs.
And there have been some close games from it too. People winning by just a few points because of it.
Yeah, man, this is exciting. So Nick's in here. We're going to get to the leprechaun shortly. El Fuego's in here. I haven't seen you, man. I hope you're doing well. I hope everything's going all right with you. And we got a bunch of viewers in here right now. So I'm fired up to see this. So week 8 buys. Guess what? 0 teams on buy. I don't understand it. Why? What is the NFL thinking? Week 7 and 13 buy apocalypse. Are they trying to drive fantasy football managers crazy? Because they did that in week 7. And then week 13, when you need to win most likely to get into the playoffs, because the playoffs start the next week, you better be looking ahead to week 13. If you are a borderline playoff team and have a plan, if any of your big players are on bye, you can't prepare week 12. You need to be ready for that week now. So start looking ahead to week 13, see who you have on bye. Week 6 and 14, 2 weeks on bye. So 2 teams on bye. So it's not a lot, but week 14 might be a playoff week for you in fantasy football. Now you have to deal with 2 teams on bye. And then the rest of the weeks were 4 teams on bye. So I don't understand. Does this make sense? Is there any thought process here?
No, and I so a long time ago I had read an article where some jabroni, which is a new word to me just a few years ago when I met you, but some jabroni had written about how it they try to base their scheduling around these concerts and these other things that these big venues do, and that's crap. Like, I've looked more into it. Those other concerts and everything are scheduled based around what the NFL teams in those stadiums are doing. So they pretty much give the NFL full reign to decide on their scheduling here. So I have no idea. It doesn't even make sense to me. So the only other thing I could think of would be maybe they consider other things when they're doing their scheduling, like maybe certain refs that need certain weeks off, or they live certain distance from a stadium, so they try to give them certain games or something like that. And you know, I don't really know, but you would think that if that were the case, then they wouldn't care where the bye weeks fell anywhere, and they wouldn't keep them all as close to the middle as possible either.
Yeah, they could have put 2 teams on this bye and then reduced the other weeks to 5, not 6. I don't know. But hey, do you like my spooky shirt, by the way?
Well, you can't have 5 teams on bye.
Hey, you didn't mention my well, whatever. Do you like my spooky shirt?
Yeah, no, it's nice. It's nice. I like
All
it.
right, I'm
Yeah.
gonna advertise our spooky squares. Monday Night Football, $5 a square. We have about 25 squares left, I believe. I think the payouts first quarter 75 or 50, halftime's 125, then it's 75 third quarter, and I believe 250 final. So full payouts. Reach out to me in the Gilded Chat or on Twitter or email at Coach Sheps, titles at gmail.com. Get yourself a $5 square. It's Monday Night Football. It's Halloween Eve, and it's Lions versus Raiders. So $5, man. Give yourself a shot to win. Justin, the streaming life.
Yeah. So the streaming life this week, just like every other week, I'm going to give you a defense, a kicker, a quarterback, and a tight end. Those are the 4 positions that you tend to stream after your draft. Going with the Jaguars again for the team defense. This is the second week in a row, and I think like third of the last 4 weeks, and then the 4th week overall on the season. But the Jaguars are still consistently scoring points as a top 10 defense every single week, and they're still only rostered in about a third of the leagues. So continuing from last week, in case you didn't listen, I suggested that you pick up the Jags last week, and they put up that top 12 fantasy defense numbers yet again. They will again in week 8 against the Steelers, who have given up the 11th most fantasy points to opposing defenses. After week 8, you can finally drop the Jaguars unless it's deep enough to hold them through their bye week, because in week 9 they have a bye, and then they have a tough opponent, and then week 11 they have the Tennessee Titans. So after the Titans, other than the Titans after this week's game, the rest of their schedule is too difficult. You're not going to want to risk streaming them on a regular basis or even holding them because the opposing offenses are just going to start getting better and better. Jason Sanders is my kicker of the week, my big kick of the week. So 42.5% rostered. In week 2, Sanders would have had 14 fantasy points if not for 2 missed field goals against the Patriots. Sanders has not missed a single kick of any kind since then, and he gets a chance to exact revenge in week 8. Only this time he will be at home in beautiful Miami with a forecast calling for 75 to 82 degrees and just partly overcast. It helps that New England has given up the 3rd most fantasy points to kickers on the season as well. Sanders plays for a top premier offense in the league, meaning that worst case scenario, he's still going to get you a few extra points at bare minimum. He has a very safe floor playing in that offense. But I'm projecting 2 field goals and 3 extra points for Sanders this week. And if those 2 field goals happen to be longer ones, or if he happens to get a 3rd field goal, then you're looking at one heck of a game from your streaming kicker. My quarterback stream of the week, Tyson Bagent. So I know he's down there in numbers, but there's reasonings behind
Wait,
this. So
you watch this guy live in person.
yes.
Flex a little bit.
Yeah. So I actually ranked him. Shoot, you know what? I wish I do have it. So I have the Nationals and the American team right here that I ranked and
At the Senior Bowl.
At the Senior Bowl, yeah, the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. It's not really a super big flex, to be honest with you, because
You were there live. You were on the field watching Tyson Bagent. You were like
Oh, I thought you meant where I ranked him at.
No, I meant like you watch this. So you watch this kid, this young man live in person, and now you saw him before the rest of the world caught on. I think that's a little bit of a flex.
Yeah, there you go. I did put Jake Hayner number 2 on my list from the Senior Bowl. So, but yeah, no, it was a lot of fun too. You got to hang out with some good people down there. We had a good time, and you got to experience Waffle House for the first time, and we got to see Mini Mardi Gras and what was it? Usher? Was that the
It was Nelly.
Nelly? Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm not a music fan, but
all good.
even I enjoyed that concert. All right, but yeah, Tyson Bagent was definitely one of the other big highlights, right up there with whoever that musician was. But Tyson Bagent, Chicago Bears, only 1.8% rostered. If you're in a one quarterback league, you likely don't need to stream a quarterback this week because there are no buys. But in Superflex, quarterbacks are still very hard to come by. Tyson Bagent is a guy that's widely available even in super flex leagues because he has no real name recognition, no draft capital, and he plays for the Bears. So, however, though, Bagent hit 72.4% of his targets in week 7 against the Raiders, the 13th worst team against quarterbacks, and 71.4% the week before that against the Vikings, the 23rd worst team against quarterbacks. In week 8, he gets to face the Chargers, who are the worst team in the league against quarterbacks. I'm projecting 200 yards passing, 25 rushing, 2 total touchdowns, and 1 turnover, giving him a solid streamable super flex total of about 17 points, fantasy points this week. And then Michael Mayer. Vegas tight end, 9.4% rostered. He was kind of a waiver darling. A lot of people picked him up a couple of weeks ago, and he was kind of quiet this week. I believe only 3.3 PPR points against a somewhat tougher defense. But Mayer has been targeted 11 times in the last 3 weeks. So among streamable tight ends whose ownership is less than 10%, his target share is definitely the highest of anybody in that group. Also, Mayer has the best possible matchup against tight ends among all streaming tight ends, no matter what the percentage, as he faces the Lions in week 8. So he's got a very favorable matchup, and we're going to have rookie tight end against rookie tight end there in that game. So who knows? Maybe National Tight End Day just comes a week later for Michael Mayer.
Man. All right. Leprechaun card. Let's spin the wheel. Let's reveal it here.
All right. So the Leprechaun card, Demogorgon.
Wait a minute. The algorithm has us figured out. I'm going to Universal Studios in like 10 days. So I love that advertisement right there. I'll let it fly.
Yeah, they're not sponsors though, so screw it.
Yeah.
But we do love you, Disney, if you want to.
I am a Disney travel agent and a Universal travel agent. So you can work it into the show.
There you go. I probably should have left it up then. Now I feel bad.
It's
I
all
don't want to get you fired. All right. So Demogorgons played the Leprechaun card against his opponent this week, and I can't remember who that is, but I'll explain the wheel if you
I think it's Tone. I think it's in the Franken-stank division. I think so. Tone has the Michael Myers card, which is at his
that's right
ultimate strength.
Yeah,
20%. Final week. So this was like a Hail Mary, right? The Demogorgon's taking a Hail Mary right here.
So there's 20 wedges here. I'm going to spin the wheel, and Demogorgon or Anthony have to honor whatever this wheel says.
Huge.
20 different items on here.
This is huge.
Just shuffle it 3 times.
We couldn't have planned this better. Like this is a huge moment right now because this could totally shift the level of strength right here.
All right, Demogorgon, your opponent, meaning Anthony, must start their optimal lineup after this week's games are done.
You're done.
Wow. So that means if Anthony Dion has a bench player that just happens to go off for 55 points and he outscores one of his starters, then he gets to swap him out there. He gets to start the best possible lineup. So Demogorgon, it was definitely the right time to play the card. I kudos to you for taking this shot. 20% is a lot of points. Is it 20 for him this week?
Yeah.
because it's the 4th week.
It's
Yeah.
the final week.
So 20% is a lot of points to have to give up. You had to take your shot. But now it just became very anticlimactic and went from being potentially game of the season for these two to all right, now let's just see who he steals.
Well, unless his team just poops the bed. If his
Yeah.
team wets the bed. So Nick, there's still hope, kid. Man, adult. You just need to hope his team just completely does awful. And even his bench players do awful. You got to hope for that.
Yeah.
That's all you got. All right. I do want to mention, I'm going to talk about my dudes and duds, which is my weekly starts and sits. You can find them every week, toiletstotitles.com every Wednesday. Every Thursday, you can find my guy, Jason, who's been at Disney nonstop, and I'm super jealous. And Rich, all right, the Frito Bandito, they do a weekly top 10 by position, PPR. So you can find that on Thursday. You can find our start sits. You can find our weekly top 10 rankings, all of that, and Title Time Live every Sunday, 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. That's another tool. Live on the air. You subscribe, you comment during the show, you ask your start sit questions, and the panel will answer them for you. So we have tons of things that are going to help you. Now, if your team's kind of already out of contention and you're looking towards next year, like shout out to the Giants fans, shout out to the Washington Commanders fans, this is all a possibility for you. You might be thinking about the NFL draft, okay? We have mock drafts every other week. So we've already completed 2. We're completing our 3rd on Tuesday. We're going to release it Tuesday, October 31st on Halloween. We also have a bunch of shorts. I just released a player profile on Malik Neighbors. So we're working on our big board. We're working on player profiles. We have you covered for the 2024 NFL draft. And I would love to talk to you about these prospects that I'm watching and I'm writing up and I'm breaking down in our Gilded Chat. So if you love the draft, I love the draft. Let's chat about the draft. All right. On to the dudes and duds. All right. My dudes for this week, Justin Herbert versus Chicago Bears. So this is going to be a showdown. Tyson Bagent versus Justin Herbert. The Chargers need to bounce back in a big way. I think it comes in week 8 on Sunday Night Football. This was going to be my pick for the survivor pool, the Chargers, if I didn't lose this week for the San Francisco 49ers. But if you're in the survivor pool, you have the Chargers. I'm taking the Chargers. The Bears are currently allowing 22 points per game to opposing quarterbacks. I bank on Herbert topping 25. Matthew Stafford at my Dallas Cowboys. I'm calling Stafford a dude in back-to-back weeks. Maybe I'm attempting the reverse jinx. I could be attempting a reverse jinx here, but maybe I'm being sincere. Who knows? I just think Nakua and Kupp will give this Cowboy secondary problems, which will result in Stafford having himself a day. I think there's going to be a lot of fireworks in this one. Isaiah Pacheco. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Are we at that point where we're saying Nakua before we say Kupp?
I did.
You did, and you did it naturally.
Right. I mean, they're tandem. I think it's more so Kupp missed time. Nakua carried the torch. Kupp's back.
I don't know. I never said Wayne and Harrison until Harrison was gone.
True.
I'm just saying.
Man, now we're but are we doing that? Are we comparing Kupp and Nakua to Wayne and Harrison?
I mean, I believe Nakua could be the next greatness.
Where do we see him?
Say again?
Where do we see him?
Where do we see him?
Where did we see him? In person.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And I've for a totally different story later on, I actually have a negative story in Dynasty when it comes to Nakua. So, but
we did see him in person, and he crushed it day one.
Yep.
And he did so well that he shut it down. Like he was done. He didn't participate in practices anymore. His agent said, so we had the inside scoop. If you were in the Gilded Chat, if you were watching our shows, you knew Nakua was the guy. Usually the dudes who stand out at the Senior Bowl stand out in the NFL. Like Kareem Hunt was the Senior Bowl MVP, came into the NFL, just blew the doors off everybody until he got himself in trouble. But anyway, I'm going to give Isaiah Pacheco some flowers. I think at the Denver Broncos this week, the Broncos are allowing the opposing running backs to have the most points out of any team. Pacheco had 11 more carries than the next closest Chief in week 7, and he added 4 receptions, which was the 3rd most on the team. So he's getting the opportunities. This week, the opportunities will be worth it. They'll pay off. Travis Etienne at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Etienne is heating up and becoming a weekly must start. Following a big day in week 7, in which he ran for 2 touchdowns and 14 carries and added 3 receptions for 24 yards, I'd expect him to be heavily involved against the poor Steelers rushing defense. DJ Moore, he's going to connect with your guy Tyson Bagent against the LA Chargers. Moore still managed to have a productive day with Bagent at quarterback, totaling 8 receptions for 54 yards. I like the fact he was targeted that much. I expect him to be targeted that much again. This Chargers defense has allowed the third most points to opposing wide receivers thus far. Go ahead, Justin.
That's because DJ Moore is quarterback proof. He's proven it over his entire career. So ranked pretty highly in my offseason ranks by most people's standards. Like DJ Moore is a dude, so he doesn't need a good quarterback.
Oh, we got Johnny D in here. I'm gonna let me finish my dudes, Johnny, and then I'll answer your question. All right. Chris Olave at the Indianapolis Colts. This might seem odd to you, but some players produce when there's noise surrounding them. There's been a lot of noise. Olave seemed a little checked out last week, and maybe I'm just trying to catch lightning in a bottle. But I feel like Olave comes out this week and absolutely blows up. All right. So he was driving 70 and 35. That's reckless. You're acting reckless. Need to get your head on straight. I expect him to get his head on straight and produce. And then Darren Waller versus the New York Jets. He's coming off his best performance of the season, 7 receptions, 98 yards, 1 touchdown. He'll be coming off a big week right into a juicy matchup with the New York Jets, and they're allowing 17 points per game to tight ends. So they're good on the outside. They're good in rushing the passer, but they're not very good against tight ends. So Waller, he's going to feast. So Justin, what's this question from Johnny?
All right, so Johnny's wanting to know if we have any advice for a player who's 1-6 in PPR right now. He said that he has many players who are inconsistent. So Adams, Lamb, Njoku, Gibbs, etc. He said he won it last year, but now he can't seem to buy a win this year. What is the play here for Johnny D?
Johnny, are you in Dynasty or is this redraft? That's what I need to know. Because if you're in redraft, I don't know if there's any formula or solution. Like you got to hope for a win. You got to stack some wins. How are you going to stack some wins? By setting an optimal lineup and hoping like, I don't know if there is a secret recipe for this. You know
what I would do in this situation, Johnny, especially with the players that you've laid out here. Adams still has some sellability because of his name factor, especially if you happen to have a Packers or Raiders fan in your league. You need to know your league mates going into it, first of all. But Gibbs is a guy who just had the huge week this week by Gibbs standards especially, but it was a really big week. It looks to be that maybe he's made that breakout and he could potentially be the guy. And if he's not, then at least he looks that way to a lot of people. Normally, we want you to keep Gibbs in this situation, but if you're 1-6, he's your biggest sell factor right now out of the ones you gave us. And you said it yourself, you're looking for consistency. These guys have been inconsistent. You might be able to sell Gibbs for 2 pieces that are more consistent. It might give you a few more points. And I'm not saying it's going to be enough to get you into the playoffs, but it might be enough to keep you from getting last place. And it definitely could give you enough points each week to try to play spoiler against some of your buddies, especially if this is a home league.
Love it. All right, let's move on to our duds. Geno Smith versus the Cleveland Browns. He's not looking quite as electric as he did last season. He's not matchup proof. This week, the Seahawks face the Browns. They're allowing the fewest points to opposing quarterbacks this season. I'm sitting him down. Joe Burrow at the San Francisco 49ers. This is less about Joe Burrow and more about the 49ers. Maybe I've shown too much faith in those 49ers, but I believe they'll be coming into this match after losing 2 games back to back. I think they're going to be fired up. They're going to figure it out this week. It does not bode well for Joe. I think he's going to be sacked a lot. The LA Rams running backs at the Dallas Cowboys. Today we found out Darrell Henderson was put back on the practice squad. Who has any idea what's going on there? This backfield is a disaster. It's a mess. I want nothing to do with it rather. I don't know whoever it is that's going to be leading the backfield. I'm not starting them. This Dallas defense is stronger against the run than people give it credit for. All right. And it's just not worth the risk. Bijan Robinson at the Tennessee Titans. There were tons of Bijan questions sent out to the Title Tribe chat last week. Like, what's going on? Is this guy hurt? Supposedly he had the flu. I don't know. I'm thinking he's all right. I think he'll be fine. But the Titans defense is actually pretty good against the run. And there's just too much volatility. Obviously, you drafted Bijan high. You're probably going to start him. I'm just saying, just limit your expectations. All right, hope that you have better options around him. Mike Evans at the Buffalo Bills. Mike Evans has been pretty hot and cold. It's been a good week, a bad week throughout the first 7 weeks of the season. This week, I'm banking on it being a cold week. The Bills have only allowed an average of 23 points to opposing wide receivers total. I just don't think Evans will get it done. Jalen Waddle, this one hurts me versus the New England Patriots. This might be another attempt at a reverse jinx. All right, I tried reverse jinx in Matthew Stafford. I'm trying to reverse jinx Waddle in the other direction. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping he absolutely blows the doors off of the Patriots defense, but he's failed the top 65 receiving yards since week 2, and he only has two receiving touchdowns. I don't know, man. It just the big play seems to be eluding him. That's his thing. I don't think it's going to happen against the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick, regardless of what you think is going on over there, they're coming off a win. They're allowing the ninth fewest points to opposing wide receivers. I think they're going to shut them down. And finally, Trey McBride, even though Zach Ertz is on the IR, everyone's going to be pumping up the Trey McBride shares. Be careful. The Baltimore Ravens are allowing the second fewest points to opposing tight ends. The Baltimore Ravens know how to shut tight ends down. They have one of the best tight ends in football. They practice against them every single day. They're prepared to shut down Trey McBride. Go ahead, Justin.
And not to mention with Trey McBride, he had a few shining moments last season where he just kind of stood out and you kind of thought, man, maybe this kid has it. But he had an opportunity at the start of the season this year. And I know Ertz came back right before the season started, and Ertz has played pretty well, but he's had opportunities to shine in that offense, even as the number 2. He's just really underperformed on the field as well. So there's kind of still a lot to be seen with Trey McBride before we can trust him.
All right, I want to wrap this thing up. So patreon.com/toilets and titles. If you want to support the team, you want to get in the title tribe, you want to get into the Patreon exclusive chat, if you want to get entered into all of our giveaways like the Yeti cooler we're giving away, if you want to have one-on-one access to everyone at Toilets and Titles, if you want access to our weekly waiver wire doc and video that we release after Monday Night Football to get you primed, join the title tribe, join the Patreon team, patreon.com/toilets to titles. It's $1.50 to get into tier 1, $3 tier 2, $5 tier 3, which I think is the best value of everything. We'd enjoy if you signed a little higher than that, but I think the $5 tier, great value. So hopefully we will see you in there. Justin, do you have anything to you want to pull up one of these? Let's answer one of these. I think Jay Money's got something before we finish this off. Go ahead and read that.
All right, so Jay Money here says, how would you rank DeMarco, Royce Freeman, Latavius Murray, Pierre Strong, half-point PPR? He's down Monty, Kyron, and Ford. Thoughts on Kincaid or Ferguson? And then start Howell over Geno in a 2-quarterback league. I will say that a lot of this is going to come down to how these injuries shake out throughout the week. As we get closer to Sunday, Friday night, George and I have our TGIF where we're going to be breaking down the injuries as they get more steeper into the week. And we get to see some of the practices, see who is in and who is out. And then Sunday morning, start time, it's title time for your start sit questions like this one. That's going to be a lot more prevalent a lot more will be known, I should say, by then for us to be able to answer this more accurately. But for right now, Coach, what do you think on your overall ranking here between these 4 guys?
Man, I'd probably go Pierre. I like Pierre Strong. I think he's gonna in that opportunity. DeMarcado, but James Conner's coming back week 10, so it'd probably go Strong, DeMarcado, Freeman, Murray. That's kind of where my rankings would be, and I like Kincaid with Knox hurt.
I might put Murray over Freeman just because we at least know what we're getting out of him. Like we know that his role is what his role is.
Yeah, it's a toss up at the back end
because with Royce, at least you get that opportunity for it to maybe be something else bigger. But Ferguson over Kincaid for me most weeks. There's a chance this week though Kincaid might have a decent game.
Check this out. Mark's a Rams fan. He says they suck against tight ends. So
all right. I trust Mark.
What does that saying even mean? Straight from the horse's mouth, though. That's one. You know what? There's a saying that I'm going to start using a lot, and then we need to wrap this thing up because we're dragging on. And I told my wife, prepare for me to start putting this into our regular conversation, and it's one I want to use in fantasy football. So if you like, if you're going to be watching the show, be prepared. I'm going to start saying, I like the cut of his jib. All right. I think that's a great way to talk about somebody you like. So I'm going to start dropping that in there. All right.
All right, so straight from the horse's mouth is a saying that it means that this is just so true. The origin of this phrase has reference to horse racing. Tips on the likely winner
Ah,
and uh, well, whoever was going to win the game
I get the vibe.
among the
The
punters,
game, the
as they
game.
call them, the race. Yeah. So they most trusted or their most trusted sources are the ones closest to the horses and the stable boys themselves.
Dustin asked, should he sit Geno Smith in a super flex league? Not if you don't have another quarterback. Even if I have him as a dud, if I don't have another quarterback, I'm starting him as my super flex spot. I'm not going to start him as my QB1, but I'll start him in that flex. Justin, you have anything to leave the listeners with before I wrap this thing up?
And no, actually, I didn't learn anything new today at all because I knew we would be close on time, so I didn't take down any notes. So
All
that's
right,
on me.
man. This was the longest episode of the season. We had nonstop communication throughout it. We greatly appreciate you. Get in the Gilded chat so we can continue this conversation after our shows into our next episodes. Reach out to me on the Twitter. I'll get you in there at Coach Sheps or through email, toilets to titles at gmail.com. We will catch you all later on. Take care.